Students seem to understand the reasoning behind making almost every hall on this campus co-ed on every floor. We traveled just one block off campus to come to Zest Bakery and Coffee House to see what they had to offer. Let's go check it out. Since the gender inclusivity policy in the suites is coming into effect in the fall of 2014, I sat down with some suites residents to see what they thought of the change. So Zest has a lot to offer if you're into teas, coffees, specialty kind of drinks, and desserts. I would give this place 4.5 Lance heads out of 5, and here's why. Dance Stage 2014 premiered on May 2nd, featuring not only the work of UWSP dance faculty, but also a special guest from New York. So I imagine that every graduating class has some different concerns. What are some of the top concerns of students graduating this year in particular? We decided to come to downtown Stevens Point to check out Polito's Pizza and their famous pizza slices. Let's go take a look. For as long as the suites at 201 have been in existence, each of the suites have always been occupied by people of the same gender. That won't be the same next year, however, as changes will be implemented.
The idea to make a gender-inclusive policy in the suites came about through an RIJ proposal from last year, also had support through Student Senate. And so the students recommended that we look at this policy. They gave us ideas that they had in terms of location. The suites was what they identified as would be a good place that students would be interested in having that option. So we pulled the committee together and looked at that in the fall.
This year, since the policy states that only 4 people of the same gender can be living together in one suite, there are 4 men living together in this suite: Matt, Eli, Nick, and Alex. Next year, when the policy change comes into effect, Eli could very well be an Elizabeth, and Nick could very well be a Nicole. 2 men and 2 women could be living together in the exact same suite. So why did UWSP decide to implement this change? Well, for one, they wanted to make sure students had more living options available to them.
Well, we see many benefits for the students who choose this living option. Mostly, it's an option that they now have. They can choose roommates that they're comfortable with, that they, again, can make selections based on criteria that's important to them, not the ones that are important to the institution.
They also considered what happens in off-campus housing.
We think that the gender-inclusive housing option gives us some competitiveness with off-campus housing. Students have the flexibility to choose their own roommates off-campus. So we think that having that available in the suites is very comfortable living off-campus, and so we hope that that will help some students who maybe felt like living on campus was restrictive for them in the past.
Since the gender inclusivity policy in the suites is coming into effect in the fall of 2014, I sat down with some suites residents to see what they thought of the change.
Well, I wouldn't foresee too many challenges, I guess. I would keep to myself, and I would think that somebody of the opposite gender would take my gender into consideration, and they would probably remain pretty private about their gender-specific activities. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the suites are set up in such a way that they're pretty private. You can keep the gender issues separate.
For the most part, the residents seem to be on board with the policy, as long as all of the parties involved came to a shared understanding.
When living with someone of the opposite gender, I think the only changes you'd have to make would just be make sure you can get along just like with any other roommate.
With such great support from both students and the administration, UWSP can expect more attempts at gender inclusivity in the future.
I just encourage if students have those kinds of ideas, if there's an interest in talking about an option that they don't think is available, please know that there are venues for that and that there's people willing to listen.
I'm Lance Kaster, reporting for SPTV News. University of Wisconsin Stevens Point is trying something new next year. For those living in the residence halls, changes are on the horizon.
There's going to be an increased number of students coming into the residence halls than they were planning, so what they're going to do is double up the residents with the seat.
The CAs also see the situation as potentially being challenging.
We do have confidential paperwork in our rooms at times, and maybe if the resident had friends over, the resident himself could have access to that.
According to the Federal Communications Commission, low-power FM radio services were introduced in January of 2000. Catch the golden snitch. Non-traditional sports are on the rise on campus. Do sports that use alternative equipment, such as a broom, have a chance to succeed? May 17th means commencement day for hundreds of UWSP students. Reporter Andy Davis looks into the university's approach to helping students find post-graduation employment. First, we begin our broadcast with the debate over a reconstruction proposal from the Stevens Point Department of Public Works. Development plans have begun on a new construction project along Business 51 in Stevens Point. Reporter Jason Ryan has more. That certainly was an enjoyable experience. If you ever need someone to eat more ice cream, you know who to call.